Hi guys, I'm Catherine and this is a Taste of Kath. Welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be going into episode 3 of Great British Bake Off. So today you can see we have a little bit of change of scenery. I hope you can hear me because it's a bit windy outside, but I thought just to change it up because it was a nice day. So straight into the review. Now, this week was bread week and I'm usually very excited for bread week because who doesn't love bread? I mean, everybody does. So going into it, I had really high expectations, but you know what? I'm not really too sure if this episode actually, gave me some energy or gave me some life. It was just kind of there. But first thing we saw at the beginning of the episode was that Rebs and Abdul were a bit under the weather, so they couldn't participate. So they automatically just go into the next week and there were less people. Now, the thing with this is that it could be a good thing and it could be a bad thing. I thought that it was great because it gives an early opportunity for some of the contestants to really shine out of the crowd, as there's less people in the tent this week. So I think it's a great opportunity, but then at the same time it can also be bad because if you're not so good, then there's less people to kind of compete with and give a cracks show essentially. So I think altogether it was interesting. It was an interesting week to see how people would do with less people around. Now, the signature challenge. The signature challenge was to make 2 large sharing pizzas. I love this. Great challenge. Pizzas, everybody has their way of making pizzas. An Italian would tell you to never put pineapple on pizza, but of course some people love it. So this was a good challenge to see the ingredients again and the way people actually, would make their pizza, what dough they would use, that type of thing. Now, we had James do like a twist on a ham and pineapple, like a Hawaiian pizza. He did pancetta, pineapple and mushrooms, I believe, but the judges said that it was a bit dry and the shape wasn't circular as it should be. Then we had Maxi, who made like a minced lamb with, I think, onions, rosemary and garlic sauce, which great choice. I love lamb. Lamb goes so well with rosemary, so that was a good choice to add to the sauce. And they loved her pizza. They thought it was great, tastes nice, everything. So that was great. And then Sabira had a shambao paste. So again, she's using flavors that she's used to from Malaysia and all that type of thing, which I think is always a good choice. And she had that paired with prawns and well, she said stinky bean, but I think it's just like a very fermented smell bean. And she used a sourdough dough for her base, which again I think was a good choice because it shows another level of technique than just using a typical white dough or a whole wheat bread dough. Then we had Dawn, my lovely Dawn. So she also used beef, similar to Maxi, but she did a stewing beef, which I think was probably the wrong choice because it can be quite drying compared to the mince, which would, allow for more juices, more flavour, that type of thing. So a bit tricky. Sandro did like a tropical pizza. He had barbecue base, pineapple, chorizo, so all the flavours, and they loved his pizza, so they did really well. Carol used a lot of cheese. She had a Gruyere Rambucan, I cannot even pronounce it, but she had some cheeses that are very popular in France, but the problem was that she had too much cheese, so it was literally like oozing off the pizza, which is always, you would think there's never too much cheese, but there is. It's a competition. You have to make sure that things look presentable as well as they taste great to present. So I think she lost the mark there, but in terms of flavors, I'm sure it was nice. And Janus did like an English breakfast, which is a great idea. He cracked the egg on top, like halfway through the bake, so that the egg was still runny in the middle, which I think is a great idea. Again, he always comes with innovative ideas, different flavors, and I think that's why he is always kind of like in front of the pack of the group. Now, have I missed anyone out? Oh, and Kevin was the only person that chose like a sweet flavor. So of course, when you think pizza, you think savory, and that's what most people did, but he added figs as well as chili jam and halloumi. And I think, again, I think it's great to have difference, but it has to work. And I think with the figs, it just didn't work. I think it was a bit too sweet for the judges, but it's worth the try. So all round thumbs up. I think most people did quite well. I think most of the negative comments was about the actual shape of the pizza and some of them being a bit dry. But I think the stars of the show for the signature was Maxi and Janus, of course. Now, onto the technical challenge. So the technical challenge was to make individual panel raisins. So if you know those kind of pastry swirls that have raisins inside, very French. That was the given by Paul, and it was to make, I believe, 12 individual pan of raisins. They were to be identical in shape, size, and of course flavor. So it seemed that everybody knew what they were. So, you know, sometimes with technical challenges, people aren't always aware of what they're actually baking. I think most people knew what they were or had eaten it before, but I don't think anyone had actually baked it before themselves. But of course, I mean, essentially it's just a like a sweet dough, and it's the folding technique of the butter and the fold, chilling, going back to fold, chill, and then, you know, in order to get that flakiness and that softness that comes through with a pan of raisin. Or similarly with like a cinnamon swirl, for example, because I much prefer cinnamon swirl than a pan of raisins. I do not like raisins. It's not me. I don't like that. I would prefer cinnamon swirl, but I mean, whatever, then pan of raisin. So Carol seemed to have got the wrong shape. It was underbaked and she had too much icing. Again, I think the theme for her this episode was just too much. In the first signature challenge, she had too much cheese, and then in this challenge she had too much icing and they weren't actually baked enough. Dawn also, she had some irregular sizes. Some were massive, some were tiny, and the shapes just weren't identical. And then we had Sandro. His were quite small. He made them a bit too small, but the flavors were there. The judges said Maxi, I think, was the same. Some of them were irregular, but it was full of flavor. I think they loved hers. And I think despite that, you know, you can still show your technique even if the sizes are wrong. I think as long as your flavors are there, you're showing your technique, you're showing that you can read, you know, the instructions, and you can actually get the flavors right and produce a good technical challenge. Now, unfortunately, Carol came last, followed by, I think, Kevin, and then Maxi came second, and Janus came first. So he did really well. His sizes were pretty much identical. He had the icing on perfectly, and they said that his taste great. They were baked well. The flavors were there. So no surprise that Janus won this one, and I think that put him in a good, you know, place for the showstopper, which is of course what we're going to move on to, the showstopper. Now, I had never heard of this showstopper. So this showstopper was called Smorgastarter. So I believe it's Swedish, and smorgast, oh, I can't remember. No, smorgas means sandwich and tartar means cake. So it's basically a sandwich cake. It's Swedish, and luckily Maxi was born in Sweden, so she was very aware of what it was. I think some of the others probably didn't know what it was, but again, with the showstopper, we all know that you get to practice it at home before you come in, so people had already researched, practiced, and things like that. Now, it is a Swedish savoury cake, and here I guess the judges were looking for what type of bread people use. Of course, this is bread week, so your bread is important. What bread are you using? How are you baking it? And then we had it has to look like a cake, so it has to be the flavors there. Can you structure it right so that it's strong enough to hold? We found that a few people ended up leaning and things like that, so I think there was a few different aspects that would go into this challenge. Now, Carol used a white seeded bread, which was with mackerel, salmon and pickled cucumber. Sandro also used white bread, but his was with like beef brisket, pulled beef, sloppy joe type of thing with barbecue sauce, things like that. And I think that was a good idea, but I can see how all the flavors would mesh together and it would be hard to differentiate, which is what I think the judges actually said in the end, was that all they could taste was the barbecue sauce. It kind of, you know, overwhelmed the whole smorgasbord starter. And then we had Kevin, who used, I think, Emma flour, but his ended up being too dry. I think if Kevin used another type of bread instead of just the Emma flour, then it would have been not as dry. He could have probably mixed it with the white bread or like a wholemeal bread, but it just didn't end up like that. And then Dawn used whole wheat, which I think Maxie used a mixture. So Dawn used whole wheat, and then Maxie also used whole wheat but mixed with white. And both of theirs came out really good. I think they said Dawn's was great, but she just did have slices a bit too thick, whereas Maxie, hers was great, which we expected, of course, growing up in Sweden and, you know, growing up there for a little bit. So she had great flavors. The seeded bread was a bit heavy, but her presentation was great, and it's good that she showed, you know, different flavors of, or different varieties of bread as well. Most people just use one type of bread, but, you know, she showed the difference in making two types of bread, so that adds a level of technique that, of course, the judges are looking for. It's bread week, guys. Come on, what else are you going to focus on? I mean, I always say this, flavors matter. Focus on what the theme is for the week and you'll do great. Now, Sabira again came with a Malaysian flavor. She did nasi lemak, which is chicken with sambal sauce, coconut ginger, those type of flavors mixed in, and hers was decorated beautifully. It was beautifully presented, great decoration, the flavors were all there. I love James. He made these little panda shaped breads, and he did like a char siu pork, and he made like used squid to make the the black parts of the panda on the bread, which I think is a great idea. But I believe that his flavors were just a bit one-dimensional, so but I think he was there, he was getting there, you know what I mean? I think he just needed a bit more seasoning, you know. I guess James just hasn't been, you know, all the way there with the flavors. He hasn't had the experience. The top three coming into judging seem to be Janus, Sabira and Sandro. I mean, this makes sense because throughout all three challenges, they were there with their flavors, they were there with their techniques and with their presentations. They all came out really great. At the bottom, unfortunately, was Carol, Kevin and Dawn. And out of those three, I kind of thought Carol would be going home, but I think she was safe because since, like I said at the beginning of this, I said that Rebs and Abdul were unfortunately not able to bake that week because, you know, they were sick or under the weather. Fortunately, the judges said that nobody was going home, which I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Do you think someone should have gone home, or do you think that they made the right choice? I think they made the right choice. I think since, you know, two people weren't there to be judged, I think it would be unfair, kind of. But of course, with that, we know that later on there's going to be two people going home in 1 week, so I guess it's just kind of delaying things, but I think it's fair. So of course, as you can guess, our star baker was Janus, which makes sense because he had all his flavors there, his techniques there throughout each challenge, from the signature to the technical to the showstopper. Oh, I don't think I mentioned, but in the showstopper, Janus did like a fish and chips flavored smorgasbord starter, and I think that was such a great idea. He did like a curry powder, curry sauce, he did vinegar chips, that kind of thing, and I think it just made so much sense. I think it was a really great choice. Prue mentioned that, oh, it's a bit of a risk, you know, she wasn't sure if the flavors would come through, how it would come out, but it actually came out really good, and of course he did well because it got him star baker. So yeah, congrats to Janus. Janus is really, you know, showing himself well, and he's been imaginative and innovative with each of his bakes every week. So I think him and Sabira are probably the top two right now out of everybody because they're great. But you know, next week we're going to have Rebs and Abdul back, so it'd be good to see whether those two are still the leading. Will there be someone else trying to pull through? Let's see. And next week is going to be a Mexican theme, which I think is the first time they're ever going to be doing Mexican theme, so that's going to be different. I wonder what they're going to make, what the bakes are going to be. That would be interesting. Maybe there might be something with chocolate, because, you know, we all know that Mexicans are known for, you know, the creation of like hot chocolate, the Aztec, that kind of thing. So let's see if that will come into it. I don't know. What else? I'm sure like flavor. I'm sure there'll be a savory factor because we all love, you know, Mexican food. So yeah, no, there's so many things that I think could could come out of Mexican week. So let's see, I'm excited. But guys, I just want to say thank you for watching. Literally meet me here again this time next week, and please do like, share, subscribe, comment below. Do you think that the right person got star baker? Do you think that they should have sent someone home instead of saving everybody? Let me know your thoughts and any guesses as to what the bakes would be for Mexico week next week. I would love to interact with you guys, but please, like I said, do subscribe, do like, just so I know that you're enjoying these videos. Comment, share, all the works. So yes guys, that's it from me. I shall see you again next week. Bye.